Apparently. My husband's workplace, Company X, was the scene of a terrible fire. Being at his business made me feel like I had been slammed on the head. I phoned him right away, hoping he had gotten out of the fire unscathed. My anxiety increased as my husband's trite hello tempered the wave of relief I felt as the phone rang. Max. Where have you gone? I inquired. Will you be okay? I had to raise my voice because I was so relieved. Max responded with an annoyed tone, asking, "What's wrong with you? You're not speaking quietly. Don't call me when I'm at work. I'll end the call suddenly." His reaction was strange. Even though my spouse didn't appear to have anything to do with the fire. My life's work has been being a nurse. My name is Mona. And I'm 32 years old. I tied the knot 3 years ago at the age of 29. Getting married in my late 20s was a stroke of luck. We were married and living well in the accommodation supplied by the firm when I met my husband Max through a mutual acquaintance. I still think we can have a nice family together. Even though we've been married for 3 years but haven't had any children yet. Though he can be a bit egotistical at times. Max is generally a generous and thoughtful person. Being with him makes me feel safe because he demonstrates his love. But now, it appears like work has been eating away at him. Even on his days off. I have the impression that his weariness is impacting his focus at home. After supper, he settles into a couch potato position in front of the TV, which he hardly turns on and instead stares at his phone the whole time. His responses to my attempts at conversation are short and uninterested. Like, yeah, or oh. At first, I was worried that I had alienated him. But then I realized that his busy schedule was probably to blame. In order to be there for him, I made it a point to make healthy, balanced meals for lunch and dinner every day. Until an odd event occurred one day. A coworker called me the day before to request that I move from night to day shift. I intended to notify Max of the shift change as I had already said that I would be working evenings. On that very day, I emailed Max to inform him of the shift change and to let him know that I would be preparing supper and waiting for him. Unfortunately, I never heard back from anyone. I focused on my own work, assuming he was also occupied. He still hadn't replied when I finished my assignment. On most occasions, he responds quickly and occasionally even uses emojis. But he did nothing more than read my message and ignore it. After 3 years of marriage, I couldn't help but wonder whether he was merely exhausted from work. On my way home from work, I picked up some healthy supper components for him at the grocery store because I was feeling a little depressed. It was so chilly outside that I opted to make a dish that only needed 1 pot. I waited for Max to get home before chopping the ingredients and getting the cooking started. He usually arrives at 7 p.m. But he didn't show there until 9 p.m. Even though he was late. Welcome back. You've been away for a while. Was working extra hours necessary for you? Excuse me, I inquired. The response was an emphatic yes from him. Why were you suddenly required to work the day shift? An emergency involving a coworker, he clarified. I apologize for the delay in notifying you. I get it. It's a little annoying that you informed me on the same day. I may have intended to have something to drink. Oh. I see. I see now. He murmured. I'm sorry, as I placed the saucepan on the stove. You just didn't eat, he inquired. No. I said. I was going to wait for you. His words. Well. Thanks. But next time you won't have to wait for me, left me with a twinge of sadness. Max and I each had our portions after I simmered the hot pot. After what felt like an eternity of waiting, I finally got my hunger quenched and devoured the food. On the other hand, I saw that Max wasn't eating regularly. Then what's wrong? I inquired as to your snacking habits. When asked, he responded with a, "Oh. Yes," but his expression betrayed no clarity. Well, a junior coworker actually went out and bought me a bowl of rice because I worked late. I'm not so hungry, Max stated. You should have informed me before I began to cook the hot pot, rather than waiting until I had already begun. All right. If only you had brought this up sooner. All right. Set aside my servings in the fridge, Max said when he noticed that I was feeling down. I'll have it first thing in the morning. He lied down on the couch after attempting to lift my spirits. Soon after, he stood up and declared, I'm going for a walk. This struck me as odd. So I questioned. Why now? He said, I haven't been exercising enough lately. And I need a change of pace because I work late hours every day. He started getting ready to leave. Eating the hot pot by myself made me feel a little lonely. So I also chose to save my part in the refrigerator. I figured I'd go for a walk with my hubby because we hadn't spent much time together recently. Max objected, stating that it wasn't a good idea for me to move shortly after eating. He said he would rather be alone himself and that he wanted to take a long stroll. I chose to stealthily follow him when I had a feeling something wasn't right. I saw that he was walking with an uncommon enthusiasm, which confirmed my anxiety. He pulled up in front of a slightly distant park from our house, glanced around, and appeared to be talking on the phone. A car drew up and I looked to see who he was talking to. Max walked over to the automobile and struck up a conversation with the person behind the wheel. I stepped up toward the car because it was dark and difficult to see well. It was at that moment that I noticed the individual seated in the driver's seat. Her lips were shiny with lipstick and her hair was long and curled. A woman could be heard laughing joyfully as my spouse settled into the passenger seat. It was obvious he was having an affair. The automobile with the two of them had already departed by the time I realized what was going on. My spouse texted me to let me know he had run into someone he knew and would be arriving home a bit later after I stood there for a while. Astonished. Someone he knew, all of a sudden, I didn't think he was telling the truth. Even though he'd said he wasn't hungry and had eaten. He hadn't returned home until after 2 in the morning. I wasn't even conscious that I was awake. Appearing inebriated, he proceeded to the kitchen to sip on a glass of water. After that, he frequently only put in extra time on the days I worked the day shift. It was never easy for us to plan our days off. But it was even more difficult now. He had to work on his day off today after working late yesterday. I couldn't help but wonder if the woman I had seen that day was the one he was meeting. After doing an internet search to learn more about detective services, I decided to send an investigation request to the most reputable one. I knew it was wrong to look into things behind his back, but I had to trust my spouse again. So I went ahead and did the investigation. The most challenging part of the investigation was waiting for the results. My spouse was as silent as ever. And I could not help but think of the woman every time I glanced at him. My goal was to obtain a clean image as quickly as possible. Then an amazing event occurred. On this Saturday, my spouse was working his day off and I was working the day shift as usual. We were both at work. So I was concentrating on my task and didn't think I needed to worry about anything else. Abruptly, I heard a fire truck's sirens in the distance. The noise got closer and louder. I heard another alarm and assumed the fire vehicles were passing by. There were 2 or 3 fire trucks instead of simply one. This implied that there was a significant fire close by. I was anxious and uncomfortable. Subsequently, 2 of my coworkers who had visited the hospital room returned with solemn looks. They had been discussing the fire. I said, "You mean the fire?" They said, "Yes. That is correct. It appears that Company X experienced a significant fire." I felt like I had taken a hammer to the head at that same instant. My husband was employed by the company. I attempted calling my spouse to make sure he was safe after hurriedly explaining the issue to my coworkers. As I dialed his number, I thought, "Please be safe." Despite our lack of communication, I always said goodbye to him in the morning. I hoped and prayed that he was safe from the fire. When the phone rang, I heard my husband exclaim, "Hello," as if my prayers had been heard. "Are you safe, Max?" I asked. Glad that he answered. I started talking louder because I was so relieved to have reached him. With a sour expression, my spouse asked, "What's up with you? You're speaking very loudly." "I work here. Please don't call me when I'm at work." The call was cut off right away. Although my husband's reaction was peculiar. At least he was not a part of the fire. It was impossible for him to be functioning regularly when there was a fire and multiple fire engines on the site. Did this imply that he hadn't arrived at work? And why did he seem so aloof while I was concerned for him? My annoyance with him intensified. Perhaps since we were married, I had been letting him go so he could go see someone else. I would leave the house, I decided. I packed my belongings as soon as I arrived home. I saw the detective agency's results had arrived when I checked the mailbox. I chose to depart after receiving the investigation's findings. My parents assisted me in packing, and the contractor was en route to relocate my possessions. My spouse didn't seem to be aware that I had found the truth. And that evening, I didn't hear from him. I assumed that he had been living with his partner for the entire time. A large portion of my appliances and furniture from my single days were packed away. The room appeared almost vacant and abandoned. I had no lasting link to living in that house as I glanced at the vacant area. I transferred my stuff to my parents' house for the time being and started looking for a new place to live alone. My hubby eventually phoned me the following day. "Hey. What is happening? Most of your belongings are lost." I moved out of the house. "Of course," I answered. "How come? How inconceivable could you have been? When will you be returning? And my food? How about cleaning the house?" It stunned me. Is food and duties all that's on his mind? I was reminded of the fire at my husband's firm by our chat. It was obvious that he had chosen to spend time with his lover rather than attending work. I felt my anger rising. "Why don't you assign that task to another woman?" I inquired. "What? What's the matter with you?" he asked. "The woman you were with today was Linda. Wasn't she?" "Excuse me. What do you mean?" "The office was where I was doing my job." "At your workplace? Tell me how many hours you put in today." It was an eventful day. I worked till far into the night despite the fact that it was my day off. I get it. I must admit, I was taken aback by your decision to move out. Just quit being a liar already. I thought you said you were going to work. Weren't you? I was being truthful. To be more specific, I was working. If your office burned down throughout the day, how did you manage to get everything done until nightfall? Upon my call, multiple fire engines were sent to your location. Your office caught fire, and they were sent to extinguish it. You warned me not to call when you were on the clock, but you downplayed the severity of the situation. So I contacted nevertheless. All right. Plus, a detective agency provided me with proof of the affair. It's hopeless. You're stuck here. All further correspondence must be directed via my attorney. The alimony will be procured by me. Oh dear. I no longer felt any love for my spouse. No matter how many times he apologized and pleaded for my forgiveness. There's no way to remedy this. I'm afraid. I'm ending the call now. Hold on. I sought a divorce and maintenance from my attorney. With the divorce finalized and the evidence in hand, my husband was unable to evade the repercussions. I received a fair amount of alimony from both him and his partner. Surprisingly, his business partner was actually a junior employee at his company. Word of their affair spread like wildfire around the office, and their behavior during the fire stoked a great deal of animosity. Everyone is staring at my husband and his affair partner with disapproval, and they're embarrassed beyond words. It is duly deserved by them. While that was happening, I found a new apartment and am now living the single life. Someday, I'd like to meet a genuine man. My career as a nurse is secure. Therefore, I am not in a rush to start dating someone new. My own time and independence are also being enjoyed. My husband should never have had an affair in the first place. And it was even more surprising to learn about it after the fire at his business. In due time, I would have learned the truth. All that has befallen him, in my opinion, is well deserved. My life as a nurse is perfect for me right now. Being single. After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Now, let's watch another similar story. Do you even think I'm speaking? While we're talking about our daughter's senior high school career plan, my spouse is absorbed on his phone. He's not listening to me while I'm talking about anything crucial. She will have to cover the cost of college herself if she wishes to attend. A daughter who can't even look after her own granny doesn't deserve my money. How in the world does he mean that? Something ridiculous was on my husband Dave's phone when I glanced at it. I've been married to Dave for 18 years. Anna, our lone child, is a sophomore in high school. You ate really nicely. But please remember to clear away your plates. I said to her. Aren't the examinations coming up soon? I said. Yes. That's why I'm studying now, was her response. It would also be a good idea for you to consider your future goals. I know, I replied. It's that time of year when I start to worry about Anna's future profession. But I'm glad she's developing nicely. We were all three getting along great and leading contented lives together. But there's one thing that concerns me slightly, Judy. My mother-in-law. Not long after I got married, my mother died. Judy said and did something inappropriate at the funeral. Mum, you're my son's wife now. So don't cry over something like this, she said to me. Her everyday misbehavior was the reason she passed away so quickly. I was terribly offended by Judy's insensitivity. And she even made fun of my mother. What are you talking about? I asked her. That is not proper. Get out if you're going to talk like that. Judy had Dave in a rage. And I was too shocked to reply. I haven't seen my in-laws or communicated with Dave's side of the family since then. Despite Judy's terrible attitude, I think my rage has subsided with time. Although we haven't severed our relationship entirely, I'm not sure if we should keep avoiding them. They are, after all, my daughter's grandparents. That is something I occasionally consider. Then word reached me that my father-in-law had died. We went to the funeral because he was Dave's dad. It had been a while since I'd seen Judy. And she was crying. I could see that she was in severe grief over the loss of her loved one since she appeared smaller and weaker. A few days later, Dave suggested that we move in with Judy while he was still staying at his parents' house for the funeral and inheritance formalities. Now that she's alone in their home, my mother-in-law appears to be rather melancholy. I envisioned Judy crying by alone. She must be feeling so alone now that my father-in-law is no longer with her. I agreed to move in with her because I could see why Dave was concerned about her. After moving into my parents-in-law's home, things got challenging because we were now living together. Judy said, "You should put forth a lot of effort to make up for the things you haven't done well as a wife up to this point. Now hurry and make me some tea. Do you not notice that I'm depressed? You ought to show greater consideration." She had an attitude that surprised me. Judy seemed lonely to me. So I moved in with her. But her conduct worried me. Dave and I share a job. But I handle all household duties. Is supper ready yet? Judy grumbled. I just returned from my job. You're such a lousy wife. Neglecting your household responsibilities. I'm very let down by you. I was getting tired of hearing her whine all the time. Judy started blaming Anna as well. Hey, please go fold the laundry, she would say. The reply from Anna would be, but I'm studying right now. What a charmless girl you are. Just like your mother, Judy would reply. Not even your elders can you obey? Instead of going to school, girls are expected to work around the house. Judy and Anna had arguments because Anna was rebelling at a young age. Judy chastised her, telling her that studying was pointless. Taking care of the house is far more beneficial. You really irritate me. She is such a useless child. My goodness. Judy and Anna's relationship was getting worse. And I started to feel bad about moving in with her. I questioned my initial decision to agree. Judy appeared to be steadily influencing Dave in the meantime. He used to say, "Welcome home, honey," when he got home. "Come on. Let's bring your jacket and luggage over. You ought to take a seat and unwind." I was feeling confused and overpowered by the circumstances. In reality, a wife's job is to serve her husband. I want to teach Clara everything I would do if I were a wife. But it's difficult when she doesn't care about me and is unmotivated. It's annoying because Dave stands up for Judy when she lies and sobs, disregarding what Anna and I have to say. I always have a hard time getting by because of Clara and Anna. Please do something about it. Sweetie, I said to Dave. The way they harass my mother is repulsive. Dave, though, shot back, saying, You're the one bugging her. It's awful what she does to me. She always crumples up my laundry. I have never done that, I said. The person who is always griping and bothering me is actually her. How dare you speak like that? Dave asked. Your behavior as a wife is absolutely lacking. You blindly agree with your grandma. Even when she's lying. Get out of my way. Your current standard of living is a direct result of my efforts. Keep that in mind. Dave started cursing at our kid and me after believing Judy's falsehoods. Even though these fights went on. Anna graduated from high school. I made it a point to attend our daughter's school's parent-teacher meeting and keep Dave informed as per our usual procedure. Unlike before. We were having this conversation after supper in the living room. Anna has limited her college search to a select few schools offering her preferred major. Her instructor brought up the fact that, in order for her to enroll at this specific university, are you even paying attention to what I'm saying? I asked. Dave, who seemed disinterested and was engrossed in his phone, chose not to answer. Just like last year. It was uneventful. I am addressing a matter of paramount importance, I declared. She will have to save up on her own if she wishes to attend university. A daughter who is unable to care for her own grandma has no right to inherit my wealth. Dave responded in an irritated tone. And I couldn't help but roll my eyes. What are you talking about? Stupid? What on earth do you mean? Dad. You're being incredibly careless. And I don't even have any own funds. You can't just come to me for cash when you really need it. Like your mother. You're quite courageous. I don't understand how your mom could have brought you up to be this way. The situation escalated when my daughter retaliated by arguing with Dave. Next, Judy came out in support of Dave. If a mother isn't worthy, her daughter will be as well. No one should have to foot the bill for a daughter who acts haughtily and doesn't understand her place. It is correct. Why should I foot the bill for my narcissistic, dim-witted daughter? Anna is too self-centered, Dave added. It wasn't like we were short on funds. In fact, we had been putting money away for our daughter's college expenses. For no other reason than their dislike of us. I could not stand it when Dave and Judy made these remarks. So long as you're going to care only about money. I can understand. I've decided to end my marriage. Declaring my decision to divorce was a direct result of my frustration. You complete moron. You will never be able to pay for Anna's college tuition on your own. Dave gave me the silent treatment. Get a divorce if that's what you desire. I have no desire for a helpless wife who is unable to provide for her husband's family. Nor do I wish for such a woman to raise an ignorant daughter. Please do not expect our combined savings to be utilized for anything other than my family. Particularly my mother. I get it. Your haughtiness is admirable. And I pray we live in a society that accepts it. I laughed unfazed in response to Dave's scornful yelling at me. The money isn't important. Come on, Anna. Just follow me. I spoke softly to my daughter. You were going to go to your father and cry to him. Weren't you? For someone your age. Relying on him must annoy him. Since Dad brought you up to be his naive daughter. I suppose it's inevitable. Although you find it frustrating when others criticize your family. You have no problem doing the same to other people. You seem to be somewhat inconsistent. Upon hearing this, my daughter appeared to come to a realization. I said, Anna. Let's go. Sure. I'll go with you. Mom, she said. Consequently, Anna and I departed from my in-laws' residence. We figured staying at my parents' place would be the best option for the moment. After a few days, I notified Dave of the divorce's content by certified letter and urged my attorney to move forward with the case. It was only a few days later that my husband paid a visit to my parents. The question is, why are you here? I apologize. I deeply regret this. There should be no divorce. Please. Return home. Instantly upon my answering the door, he started to express his apologies. An expression of complete ignorance crossed his face as he clung to me. Our joint savings were shrinking, and I knew it was because of this. Dave was paying for club hostesses when I asked the credit card company to run a background check on him. A divorce was being quietly planned by him. It seems that Dave was known to be a client that the club hostesses tried to avoid at all costs. I'm divorcing my wife. So come and be my wife. What? How dare you even say this? I can make you happy and I truly love you, he said. Following my announcement of wanting a divorce, Dave asked a club hostess he was crushing on to marry him. Dave was upset when she turned down his proposal and kept going after her. She eventually disabled his contact information and banned him from the club as a result. Unfazed, he stood outside the club and begged. I'm serious. Just listen to me. Please. I need to head to work right now, she replied. Please. I must speak with you. I'm pressed for time, Dave insisted. He was coldly rejected, though, by her. Following several observations by Dave's coworkers, he was abandoned by his organization. After learning about Dave's extracurricular activities, his supervisor called him in for an interrogation. His boss remarked, I hear you've been stalking a club hostess. I don't find that kind of behavior impressive. I'm serious about our relationship and am thinking about marrying her, Dave emphasized. I cherish her so much. The employer answered. I know how you feel. But I don't think she has the same goals as you. She will understand if I have the opportunity to speak with her properly. Dave remarked. Well, to start with, I thought you had a wife and a daughter. I'm getting a divorce from my wife. My kid and my wife are both obnoxious and have the audacity to discuss college costs. The woman running the club is far superior to my self-centered wife and daughter. Now what? His supervisor remarked, shocked by Dave's flimsy defenses. You should take your wife's position into consideration as a husband. But Mom, did you really pay attention to what your wife said? As a husband, you ought to pay attention to your wife as well. But it seems like you only listen to what your mother says. Moreover, you're seeing another woman while ignoring our daughter's advice to go to college. How can you possibly believe that your actions as a father are appropriate? You ought to calm down. Dave was taken aback by his boss's tough confrontation. As so, he received a pay reduction and a demo. I demanded a divorce, joint custody of Anna, property division, and alimony for the money he had spent on the club in a certified letter that I sent him. Oh. I apologize so much. I was in error. Let's begin anew, Dave declared. Even if we don't get divorced, you still have to pay for the money you spent behind my back. What? When I indicated the money, Dave seemed shocked. I was aware that his true desire was not for us to make up. With contempt, I sighed. I could never go back to someone like you. Taking care of Anna. Doing all the housework. And tending to your own mother. You toy with young, pretty girls and decide what happens to Anna and me. I refuse to get back together with you. Once and for all. My daughter emerged from the back of the home at that very moment. I really apologize. I'll treat you like a good son. Let's begin anew. Dave tried to hold on to Anna when he saw her. But she gave him a chilly scowl. Are you aware of the experiences I've had over the past few months? You're being silly if you believe that a simple apology will be enough to win someone over. You don't have the right to treat me poorly just because I'm still in high school. I find it too strange and repulsive to support a parent who spends money on young ladies at the expense of his daughter's future. Dave was clearly taken aback by Anna's total rejection. He went with his shoulders lowered, quickly sinking into a profound sadness. Middle-aged males who conflated work with play were something I could not stand. At the club, a hostess turned Dave down as well. He eventually stopped attempting to make amends and started paying the fees I had requested. My ex-father-in-law's inheritance covered the money he spent at the club and the alimony. But it wasn't enough. So the remaining amount was paid in installments. Dave found it challenging to make the monthly alimony and child support payments, particularly following his pay reduction. Judy came to see me at my parents' place after the divorce. You've caused difficulty in my life. She screamed at me from the front door. I've forgiven you. So you should forgive my son and come back home. I was tired of my mother-in-law's conceit and her constant disdain for me. When I called Dave, he came running to get Judy. Mom. What are you doing? I'm telling your stubborn wife to get her act together. I'm no longer his wife. In the event that an alimony claim is required, I have documentation of our conversations from when we were living together. Are you even paying attention to what I'm saying? Why on earth would you dare treat me that way? I remained calm and responded. That's enough, even though Judy became enraged at me despite my best efforts. Mother. You are placing me in an awkward situation. Even Dave's mother was the object of his wrath. He locked Judy up in an institution because he was so angry. Alimony, child support, and facility fees put a significant pressure on my ex-husband's finances. Now that he was single and responsible for everything around the house, he was living life to the fullest. My daughter and I, meantime, were spending some quiet time at my parents' place. Amidst all that had transpired, she was determined to succeed on her college admission examinations. Dinner is ready. Here it is. You need a break. Why don't you? I am grateful. A small pang of hunger was setting in. It's time for me to eat. Keep it easy on yourself. You're working hard. I'm my mother's daughter. And since you don't have much luck with men, I'm going to do my very best to become an independent woman who can live on her own. I remarked. Oh. I see, while laughing. If my kid is determined to pursue her dreams, I will do everything in my power to encourage her. Above everything things, I just want her to be happy. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.